Hi everyone, my name's Chris. I manage a team of cloud pre-sales engineers, cloud solutions architects, technical people at Bytes. And so it'll come as no surprise to you that for the last 6 months to a year, we've been working on the normal stuff that we do, which is cloud and cloud adoption and cloud migration and cloud modernization and all of those things. But also one thing that we've been focusing quite heavily on is AI. Where does this fit in amongst Bytes? Where does it fit in with our customers? And how can we build a sort of meaningful roadmap for our customers and make sense of it? But first, can anyone tell me what this is? Hype cycle. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is the Gartner hype cycle, generally showing upward trends. We see that it normally starts with a technology trigger. It can be something as simple as ChatGPT being launched, or it could be something transformative like Tim Berners-Lee opening up World Wide Web and things like that. But then all of a sudden, people start saying, this is great. How is this going to change the world? People like Matthew get up on stage and say, look at all of these things that are coming. Look at these things that are going to happen in 50 years' time. And I'm not sure about you, but in 50 years' time, I fully expect to be retired playing golf every day. But that's not yet. But businesses start saying, look, how is this going to change the world? How can we make money with this? How is this going to change my business? And because of that, we go up to the peak of inflated expectations, right? But then people actually start using it. And they start saying, well, hang on a minute. Maybe this isn't everything that was promised on the tin. Maybe this isn't something that is going to just click our fingers and change our business overnight. Maybe we're not going to be able to all sit at home and put our feet up straight away. They start realizing that they might not have the skill set to do it. It's hard to do. It's expensive to do. It's not just, commercial off the shelf, out of a box, turn it on and it changes things. And so they go into what's called the trough of disillusionment, when they actually have to start doing something. And that trough of disillusionment sticks around for a while before people actually who stick it out and gain a skill set, and before this skill set in the wider market to be able to start picking up and starts using this technology, making small and meaningful gains into the slope of enlightenment, and then we go to the plateau of productivity. Now, this is the earliest Gartner hype cycle that I could find. This is the 1995 Gartner hype cycle for emerging technologies. You see a few key things on there. The information superhighway. Do you remember when it was called that? Wireless communications wasn't even invented yet. But I want you, as I tell the next story, to cast your minds even further back. I want you to cast your minds further back to the early 1800s. It's about 1837. And I want you to imagine that you're Ada Lovelace. Anyone heard of Ada Lovelace? Programmers in the room putting their hands up, yeah. Ada Lovelace, she was, in 1837, obsessed with maths and science and technology and engineering. And in the early 1800s, if you were obsessed with those things, you were called a witch. Fortunately, Ada Lovelace was the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron, and so she wasn't branded a witch. In fact, she formed quite a strong relationship with Charles Babbage. Anyone heard of Charles Babbage? Right, those keen-eyed of you walking through the Science Museum this morning would have seen a Babbage engine downstairs. Now, Babbage was working on this, what he called a difference engine. Some of you will have heard early forms of difference engines, but he said, look, in theory, if we could come up with the engineering to sum up differences, we'll be able to do numerical calculations with this engine. And Ada Lovelace was like, that sounds really good, and they're there, and they're drawing it out on the whiteboard, blackboard, sorry, they didn't have whiteboards then. This isn't an actual picture, by the way. This was generated by DALL-E 3, as are all the pictures in this. They didn't have cameras that good back then. So yeah, they're working it out, they're calculating it. They're saying, look, in theory, this is possible, right? We'll be able to do numerical calculations. But they disagreed on one fundamental point. See, Charles Babbage, he was a realist, right? Despite all the big thinking, he knew that the technology to go and build this and the engineering to go and build this wasn't available yet. He knew that he could build prototypes, he could build logic gates, but he couldn't build the full engine yet. And so he set his sights on just creating a numerical calculation engine as part of the analytical engine. And Ada Lovelace actually said, well, look, if you can analyze the relationships between numbers, and if you can look at how numbers interact with each other and put output based on those numbers, then what's stopping us doing that with symbols? What's stopping us looking at the relationship between musical notes? What's stopping us at looking at the differences with words? So all of a sudden, Ada Lovelace is there coming up with generative computing. right? In the 1800s. So just stop and think about that for a second. Charles Babbage's engine, they're making in 1837. They're having this crazy conversation without anything to prove it. They're whiteboarding it out, all in theory, right? They were doing it before the mathematics has even been invented to represent Booleans yet. They were doing it when they needed to chat about something. They needed to meet up in person because radio waves hadn't been invented yet, so they couldn't even listen to music and they couldn't even phone each other. They were largely doing it in the dark by candlelight because the electric light bulb hadn't been invented yet. And they were sat there theorizing this on a blackboard. In fact, the electric components to be able to represent ones and zeros, as we know, as vacuum tubes, wasn't even invented yet in the 1800s. And this is 100 years before the first digital electronic computer that could do this was even capable. Funny story about vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes, you might have seen early forms of computing. They emitted light. They were little vacuum tubes. This is not a picture of Lee DeForest, who invented it, polishing his vacuum tubes. This is an AI-generated one. But just something I found out as a side note was they used to stop working randomly. And it turns out that because they emitted light, bugs used to cover the little bell jars there. And so when the computer stopped working, someone literally had to go and debug the computer. And that's where we get that term from. Anyway, that's a distraction. That's a side note. So, look, Ada theorized all these great things that the engine could do. And she said, look, it's possible to do this, it's possible to do that. Babbage was there going, look, let's keep our expectations real, right? And so they were traveling around. Babbage did a presentation to a bunch of scientists and mathematicians in Turin. And they all largely agreed that if you could make this, then yeah, it would be phenomenal. It would be world-changing. It would really change the way that humans interact with the world if you could come up with an engine to do this kind of stuff. And one person was in the audience. It's called L.F. Manabrea. He was a mathematician, and he sat there and he took loads of notes and he studied the engine that Babbage theorized in quite a lot of depth. And he wrote a book and he published it in a Swiss publication about Babbage's engine. But Babbage couldn't read the language that he wrote it in. And he went to Ada. And Ada, obviously being a smart cookie, said, let me translate it for you, right? And so she translated this book written in Swiss, I think, that was written about Babbage's engine. But of course, Ada had bigger ideas for the engine, as we know. And so her translation actually ended up being 3 times the length of L.F. Manabrea's documentation on the engine. And she added in all her notes and all her theories. And within it, she put in this document here, which is, again, theory about if you could put something like this into a theoretical analytical engine, you'd be able to predict something called Bernoulli numbers, which are numbers used in mathematics. This is widely known as the large computer program, as the first computer program. So why am I telling you this, right? And why am I giving you a history lesson? You're not here for a history lesson. You're here to hear about what's next. Again, going back to the hype cycle, imagine if Gartner had have existed in 1837, or 1841 by this point. Where would Babbage's engine be on the hype cycle? You don't have the ability to do it yet. It's widely agreed that it's going to be world-changing. It was world-changing if we saw it as sort of an early predecessor to vacuum tube computing and the Turing machine. We've all seen the Imitation Game, right? It was world-changing. It's the foundation of everything that we're talking about in our day jobs today. But there was no engineering to do it. There was no capability for humans to build it yet. And so, unfortunately, Babbage never saw a completed Babbage engine. That one you see downstairs was someone who picked up their notes and created it. Ada Lovelace never saw a completed analytical engine. And when I think about how this relates to generative AI, I'm worried. Because generative AI has gone through the hype cycle faster than any other technology has ever gone through the hype cycle, which leads to a problem. The problem is that we're heading south into the trough of disillusionment faster than any technology we've ever seen before. I've sat in countless meetings with CEOs, board directors, and everyone's saying, look, the board says, what's our AI strategy? How are we going to revolutionize our business with AI? AI is the next big thing. Let's invest in it. Let's pump money into it. And people are sat around saying, well, look, it's actually hard to do. It's not just click your fingers and change the world. All of this stuff that we've looked about for the next 50 years just now in the presentation before, isn't something that's happening right now. How do we start doing things right now? And it comes down to this, right? That stuff that the board really cares about is that customer stuff, right? Everyone wants to integrate RFP response that customer sends them. It extracts the key information. It looks at what a successful bid looks like and automatically emails back to a customer. Everyone wants to look for unhidden insights in their customer databases and deliver LLM-based solutions back to customers and so on and so forth. And that's the stuff that the board really cares about, but the not so very sexy stuff is internal productivity and resource amplification. So what do I mean by resource amplification? Well, it's getting the people doing the things that you want them to do the most. Do you have people in your organization, and every organization is different, but do you have people that if you just had more time answering customer calls, if you just had more time serving people, if you just had more time supporting training and development and didn't spend as much of your time doing the things that are a drag to you, doing the things that we don't want you to prioritize, how could we invest in making sure that happens? So we've all seen a sizzle video from Copilot. They're very sped up and they're very quick, so I'm going to show you a little bit about one of the things that I've been using in Copilot in real time with this GIF. So this is a solution design document. This is something we go through with customers. Don't worry, it's been sanitized. This is where we agree on technologies and plans, high-level designs, architecture, stuff like that. And I've been working on a specific customer with this for months, with loads of meetings and stuff like that. And he said to me, Chris, look, I just need to document this. Oh, God, I thought it was documented in PowerPoint. No, we need to send something around the business so everything's agreed. You know, we can't just send them pictures. They need to know the rationale behind things. They need it in a Word document. We need to sign off on it, so on and so forth, right? So what I'm doing here is Copilot's been surfaced to me through Microsoft Word. That prompt is being put in to the large language model. That large language model then does something called grounding. What grounding means is it says, what is Chris actually asking me for? Yeah, he's written some words, but what does he really want? And it says, right, Chris wants a document, or Chris wants me to reference a document. That's then going into documents stored in M365, and all of that is indexed through the Microsoft Graph. Then that is serving that information back to the LLM. The LLM is appending that with the generative text that it thinks that I should want, and it's coming up with that. CloudMole, by the way, isn't a customer. Don't worry, that's my own demo company. You're going to see that a few times throughout this presentation. So, as you can see, it's coming up with a nice solution design document, but that is all throughout using the Microsoft ecosystem. If we take another little look, as I said, everything is indexed through the Microsoft Semantic Index. That's this bit in the middle here, and everything's pushed towards that. And as you can see, right now, using the M365 ecosystem, that's fairly simple. But there's also the potential to connect other things into it. Now, that's not something I've had a chance to play with yet, but it's something that, you know, in theory, stood here, talking about it, it should be possible, right? We can connect things into the Microsoft Semantic Index. Therefore, what else can we connect to it? And there's a load of Microsoft connectors and pre-built connectors that you can go and use to connect things into it. Now, I'm not saying that's available on day one when you turn it on. That needs configuring, that needs structuring. You need to look at your security strategy for it. But I'm saying it is possible to do. So imagine if you could connect your on-prem file share to it, right, in the future. So currently, that project looks like this, right? That project looks very much like I'm agreeing the design decisions with the customer. I'm bringing in experts. I'm bringing in people to agree on design decisions, show what works, show what doesn't, say what's specific for the customer is going to go into this document, do some Visio diagrams, get the crayons out, whatever. But actually, if I didn't have Copilot, I would be spending an awful amount of time documenting it into a proposal. A massive amount of time. With Copilot, it's enabled me to maximize the time spent with customers, right? So by doing that and reducing the amount of time that's spent documenting it to a proposal, I've probably saved Bytes quite a fair bit of money, but also increased the time that I spend with the customer, increasing the value to Bytes. That's just one example, right? We're still, what Gartner expects, about 2 years into the plateau of productivity, right? We're heading into the trough of disillusionment, but we're about 2 years from the plateau of productivity. So don't go thinking that you're going to turn all of this on and you're going to hit the plateau straight away. There's going to be a bit of figuring it out first. I'm going to talk about some more use cases specific to me because I do my job. I don't do anyone else's. Well, maybe not. 4 things about my job that I do day to day. I do these 4 things pretty much every single day, right? There are some use cases where I'll do things once a month or something like that, but these are the 4 things which pretty much consistently I do throughout the day. And anyone that knows me knows that I hate emails. I hate checking them, I hate responding to them, I hate understanding what's going on. I'll normally just do a big old delete as long as there's no customer emails in there, because you get copied in on a load of stuff that's not relevant to you, right? Someone just throws you in on CC for the fun of it nowadays. PowerPoint, this took too long to do when I first started drafting this. It was accelerated when my Copilot license got activated, but you know, it's one of those things. I'm the type of guy that will spend 2 hours making sure that all the boxes are the same size and 10 minutes making sure that the content in the boxes is relevant content. I love being with customers. Absolutely love going to see them, going to whiteboard with them, going to do technical conversations with them and have technical discussions with them. And I normally have to, at some point, do documents, proposals, statements of works, and presentations and things like that. Now, if I asked you which one of these things do you think my boss wants me spending the most amount of my time doing, I can guarantee you that it's not emails. I can guarantee you that it's spending time with customers. So if we can reduce the amount of time spending emails, PowerPoint, and starting from scratch, and increase the time spending with customers, that can only be a win for Bytes. So look, I got back from holiday recently, and there's a big long email chain. Again, I've been copied in, not sure why. But I was looking at this one specific customer. Turns out they want to do funding for a Sentinel workshop, right? They want to work with us on a Sentinel workshop. And I've said, look, what's the relevant information here? Copilot has summarized the whole email chain, so I don't have to go through and look at what the information is. They just say, look, this person said this person said this, that person said that. Sentinel workshop, I know a little bit about Sentinel workshops, so I went into the SharePoint and I found a customer project document for a Sentinel workshop, and I wanted to kind of see how it all came together, how you do Sentinel activation, what kind of different things you should be looking at when doing it. So I went into our SharePoint. I've asked PowerPoint to reference that document. It said it's going to work on it. Again, you'll see a document appear in a second. Company called CloudMole. Again, that's my demo company because I've sanitized it. But it's pulling it all together from SharePoint to be able to put into this. Now, again, it's not going to be perfect, but at least when I go into the meeting with the customer, I know what I'm going to kind of talk about a little bit. I know how Bytes will structure one of these kind of things, right? I know how Bytes are going to go about approaching the project. I know kind of some of the dependencies, the risks, the estimated costs, the deliverables, who's going to be involved, that kind of stuff. And I don't have to scan through a big document in order to do that. Let's say for a second now that I need to make a draft proposal because I'm going to go and meet the customer that afternoon, right? So I'm going to go and meet this customer, and I just want to fill out bits that I need to know in order to make a proposal with them. I've said, look, take that PowerPoint presentation and start making that into a proposal, and it started coming up with executive summaries, it started coming up with risks, dependencies, it started coming up with costs and things like that. Now, a few things about this that's important to know. First of all, you see that I've sanitized this document, right? I've had to go through and manually sanitize this document. And one thing that we need to talk about more is something that Simon mentioned earlier on, right? When content is being generated by machines and it includes sensitive information, how are you going to make sure that the information that the AI generates is also labeled as sensitive? Currently, if Copilot goes and references 2 documents that you've got your information protection labeling on, and it uses that information within that to generate another document, it doesn't automatically apply the labeling. Yeah, it's terrifying, right? And that's why it's really important to make sure that you've got a strategy to understand that. Second, doesn't always get it right first time. This was my 3rd attempt. First time I got the prompt wrong. Second time I referenced the wrong document. Third time it spat this out. But it's not always right first time, right? Don't forget that the gift that I'm showing you here is the polished article. Now, going to do it 3 times is frustrating, right? It is annoying. But has it saved me maybe a couple of hours? Sure, I'd say it has. And lastly, is that I still need to edit this. One thing that you need to communicate out to your businesses is that the AI-generated content isn't the finished article, right? We all know that there's probably a few salespeople in every organization that are going to say, make me a proposal, great, save, send, right? that's probably the worst thing that can happen. And so we really need to be proactively engaging with the business on how to use AI content properly. So you need a plan. You need to look for the specific use cases within your organization that are going to change the way that people work, fundamentally, right? Because if you just say, right, we're going to turn Copilot on and it's going to fix everything that's annoying in Chris's job, that's not going to be the case. There's going to be 1 or 2 use cases for each different role in your business straight out of the box. And it's on us to work with the business to help find them. And some of them are going to be high impact and low difficulty. Some of them are going to be high impact and high difficulty. And I urge every organization to figure out where the AI use cases are on that impact and difficulty trend, right? Use cases are given here. Spent over 50 minutes looking for high-res images of Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage before I realized that I was on a hiding to nothing. Now, the impact of that, you might sat here and go, right, okay, they were good images and it was a good presentation or whatever. But the difficulty, dead easy to do, right? That's out the box, that's DALL-E 3, that's technology that's available to every single person in this room. Now, imagine if I wanted to run a report from the script of this against our customer database and make sure that it was all aligned to customer propensity data and then automatically send out a marketing email generated by an LLM to go and target those customers. Massive impact for a sales organization, right? But also pretty difficult to do. And then from there, we need to look at how we build that into a strategy. So if you're sat here thinking, how do I build an AI strategy? I'd urge you to do something like this. Anything that's easy to do with big impact, that's an easy win. Go and do it, right? Talk to people about how to achieve it. Anything that's got a lot of impact, but is a bit more difficult to do, that's where you start building business cases for it. That's where you start looking at who you've got on the bench ready to go, maybe making some hires to go and do it. Because you've looked at all the incremental things as well, you might be sat here thinking, oh, well, look, if I pay someone to do it, or if I invest in skill set, if I retrain people, are they just going to be sat around once we've done those big bets and easy wins? No. You've thought of a massive list of incremental projects going to make a fundamental difference to your business. I'm going to finish with this. I've noticed that from using Copilot, I've had to change the way that I work a little bit. Bill Gates once said, if you apply automation to an inefficient operation, it only highlights the inefficiency. But if you apply automation to an efficient operation, it highlights the efficiency. Now, I've shown you 2 examples earlier. One where I've taken a PowerPoint and made it a Word document. One where I've taken a Word document and made it a PowerPoint. Now, I'm the type of person that will write a big, long Word document first, right? And then start looking at what detail to extract to make it into a PowerPoint. Now, that didn't work so well, right? It just sort of clipped everything and it just sort of put it in there. And what worked a lot better was when I allowed the Gen AI to take the PowerPoint and come up with some draft documents and things like that. So I've had to change the way that I work. And actually, it makes a lot more sense to do it that way, right? Let's get the high-level stuff down and then add the detail later, as opposed to spending ages going through all the details and then just obfuscating it out to the high-level stuff. So I've had to change the practices that I work to make the most of Copilot. And I'm really worried that, we've got this phenomenal opportunity to understand AI in a way that's going to allow us to change our process and increase. But I'm also really worried that if we don't do that, it's going to end up as shelfware, and people aren't going to make the most of it. And that, I think, is all I have time for. So thank you very much.